Welcome to Billy's Books. We're in a new environment with people playing music in the background and dogs ready to bark any second. Nonetheless, we're still going to try to review another book. And guess what? It's another Star Wars book. That's right. This is the third Alphabet Squadron novel. This one's called Victory's Price. Obviously a follow-up to the first two. We see some of the cast of the same characters. Erica Quell being one, and others. I can't think of anybody else's name right now. But anyway, Erica Quell was an Imperial, and then she defected to the rebellion, and then she seems to be back again with the Empire, but I'm pretty sure that she's still working as a rebel, trying to sabotage what they're doing, but she's got so much self-loathing that she might screw it up. There's a lot of self-loathing in this book. This book is filled with even more pathos than the other one. People were self-loathing, people regretting, people hating each other. The other rebels think that she is actually still. They think that she's actual traitor rather than just a double agent. So we don't know about that. And there's a lot of anger, And not only that, but it's kind of confusing because there's so much double agent in this going on. There's people who, there's good guys. Disguised as bad guys disguised as good guys. There are rebels on Imperial ships. There are Imperials who have got rebels with them. There are rebels who, there's actually, the rebels in a previous battle scored a Star Destroyer. So now there's a rebel Star Destroyer. We don't say rebel anymore, I'm sorry. We should be saying Republic this whole time because they are winning. And they have a frickin' government. So they're not rebels. The Imperials who are losing are still call them the rebels, but they're really the Republic, the new Republic. So there's people on both sides. It's all very confusing. People who have changed their opinion, changed their tunes, and there's lots of regret. All the Imperials that were involved, even the ones that are now with the Republic, they still have tons of regret for cooperating in Operation Cinder, which was the Emperor's dying wish to destroy everybody that went against him. After I die, just kill everybody. That was basically Operation Cinder, and people did it. Even though when the Emperor was gone, they didn't have to. They could have just said, all right, well, maybe we should just end the war, but they didn't. Some people were spitefully going on. The Empire, as it's shriveling up itself, there's sort of two contingents. There's those that want to continue Operation Cinder, and then there's another contingent that doesn't. They actually are having a little bit of civil war. Grand Admiral Sloane has disappeared. We don't know what's her deal, or at least they don't. The characters in this particular book don't know what the deal is. What it comes down to, of course, is Shadow Wing, which is the best squadron in the Imperials, versus our hero Alphabet Squadron, and they're having one of these long-term chase things, kind of like in Episode 8, where it's like they keep jumping and trying to catch each other, or early Battlestar Galactica, where it's like the Imperials are running, and the Republic is chasing them, and they keep having kind of stalemates, and then jumping to the next scene and having another stalemate. It's all very frustrating. There's a lot of parallels. Quell, while she is still on an Imperial ship, the what's known as the Emperor's Message, which is a weird, unique droid, kind of a hooded droid that scares the bejesus out of everybody, is still kind of wandering around, even though it's half broken. And the Imperial droid stumbles upon Quell doing something that's basically sending signals to the rebellion from the belly of the ship she's on. And she's like, oh shit, it caught me. Boom! So she blasts, to make sure that she doesn't get caught, she blasts this Imperial messenger droid. And it's messed up. And what's interesting is in the next scene, this is very cinematic, I'm sure they do it with the screenplay in mind. The very next scene is Hera, who is the leader of the squadron. She's sort of taken over Alphabet Squadron, or she's general. They're part of her pool of resources. She runs into Kairos, who is another people in Alphabet Squadron, who's also very weird and hooded and mysterious, and she almost shoots her. So they have those two scenes next to each other to be very modern. The New Republic Star Destroyer gets attacked by what's known as sabotage droids. They're these little droids that just basically saws with feet, and they land on the ship and you start just tearing the place apart, causing all sorts of havoc. Got some interesting quotes here. I think Kairos, right after she gets shot, she says, they're just talking about stuff. It's not because she was almost shot, but they talk about that the word blood is mentioned. And she says, for my people, blood is precious. Blood is self. Healing is rejuvenation, not restoration. Which is interesting, because she was all wounded and they were going to put her in a Bacta tank, but apparently for her species, a Bacta tank is a bad thing. She later on explains, and she had been in a suit and she no longer is. Like this weird kind of creepy suit that was not unlike the messenger. She says, the suit is a chrysalis, a healing cocoon. In Ciberon, which is the previous book where some very bad things happened, it was removed. So in the previous book, she had lost her chrysalis, and they took her out of her chrysalis and put her in the Bacta tank, which messed her up because the chrysalis was healing her. They stripped it off before it was done healing her and put in this Bacta tank, which is not for her. So she ended up kind of stuck in a kind of a halfway incomplete thing. So now she's really screwed up. They take that Emperor's messenger droid, and they take it. Quell takes it on a secret mission with a team of people who don't necessarily want to be with her to a special place, a special planet where there's a droid that actually dissects them and cuts it up and looks at it like the way they used to do with the intestines and stuff like that. I think it's actually the nickname for this droid might be the Oracle, because it goes and checks out the intestines of this droid. You know, before all these the sequels happened and stuff, I had a whole theory of mine that wasn't going to be true, that the third trilogy would be a droid rebellion, which is pretty much what Battlestar Galactica was. It didn't happen, but they keep on hinting at it. They're always hinting at the droids being treated like slaves and they need emancipation, but it never happens. Well, anyway, on this planet where they go to dissect this droid, that is a droid that is a planet where the droids have taken over, and they have made the people slaves, the humans slaves, and the humanoids. And that's great because they're carrying around signs, and one of the signs they have is "No meat, no masters." And one of Quell's crew goes, "Well, she's not wrong." So I don't know what the ending is, and neither do you, because it's a new book. But there's plenty of stalemate with hyper jumps, lots of pathos with self-doubt and people self-guessing, just like always. One other cool thing happens is during there's all these stalemates, the rebels, since they're basically there's a planet, and they have a special unique system of rings and stuff where there's protection, and so the Imperial people are there to wipe out this planet. Even though they don't have a Death Star, they're going to do their best using these defensive rings against them, and so they're under. And then the good guys are above the rings, and what they do is every now and then the tide shifts and they can swoop, but it's like a brief time, and they have to come back and separate again, or they'll kill each other or something. Anyway, the radiation gets really bad when the tide comes back, so they only have these brief moments where they can battle. But in that moment, the Republic, the Alphabet Squadron people, they get a clear channel, an open channel, and just start talking in old school, and they're like, "Oh, let me tell you some stories about when I was a kid," and all this stuff, and they take turns, and it's very much, and they just keep bombarding them with it in the open channel, and eventually some of the Shadow Squadron, the Imperial people, start actually answering back, and as soon as that starts warming up, here comes the next battle, and it's all wiped away. But it is interesting that they start humanizing each other in that way that is so important. The dog hasn't barked at me once. I mean, there's dogs far away that barked at me, but not this one right here. God bless you, little puppy. So, this one's more complicated than others, but if you've read the first two, you're bound to read the three. I wouldn't read the third one without reading the first two, because you will be confused. But that said, if you can't do, review. What you gonna do when the satellites drop? When the satellites drop?